Okay, let's get started in module number 3. We're focusing on social justice and advocacy in our third module. So we have our leadership outcomes starting out and following with our very specific objectives for this module. So we're going to look at the role of the leader in social justice and that advocacy piece, and also looking at impacts as far as health literacy and looking at in the context of patient outcomes. We're going to examine cultural humility, and I want you to think really long and hard about the contrast or the differences and the congruences of cultural humility and cultural competence. And there are two different ways to really examine and address our growth as an ongoing process in building our overall cultural humility and really seeking to understand and seeking to gain perspective so that we can have a broader perspective as leaders and helping those that we serve to have a broader perspective as well. We're also going to examine the research that with marginalized populations and populations who experience that excessive burden of health disparities as well, and how really difficult it is to reach those populations, but how valuable that information is. And then we can tie back to what we talked about in our previous modules as far as looking at informed consent and making sure that we provide the information that folks need to truly make an informed consent when they're consenting to be a part of research. And that ties into health literacy as well, because we need to make sure that we're explaining and informing folks in a way that they truly can comprehend. And some of the complexities of healthcare, it is questionable whether or not some folks can really truly embrace and comprehend. Even though that we have the perspective and we have the knowledge to comprehend, it doesn't mean that everyone else can comprehend some of the real complexities of healthcare and of healthcare treatments, those types of issues. We're also going to look at organizational policies and practices that may actually present barriers as healthcare providers and healthcare organizations. Very often we consider ourselves to be open, but when we look at some of those factors that in our systems and processes, they may indeed really be barriers for some folks in accessing care. So with that being said, we're going to start out thinking about our thinking and looking at those aspects that may trigger some bias, so to speak, or we maybe have some implicit bias, some biases that we may not even really recognize that we have, or they may be unconscious biases. So all those things we're going to think about in this module. So we're going to go through our GRACE textbook. We're going to look at chapter 3, and please take a look at all the documents in the module. Of course, you're going to be uploading your social justice interview in the assignment link, and we're going to have a discussion on Henrietta Lacks as well. We're, as far as the content, we have our reading. We also have an interesting article on the critical discourse analysis of social justice in nursing's foundational documents. This is a really good read, and again, it's something to trigger that thought and to expand our perspectives. And really, we need to always have those critical questions in mind as we're examining our guiding documents and continually try to improve our care of those who may be experiencing social injustices and those health disparities that many folks experience. There's information on health literacy, and I want you to really take some time to synthesize the information within the video on cultural humility. And again, it's a very unique perspective of constantly learning and growing and having that inquisitive mind to learn more about cultures. And just always remember that folks may be of a certain culture, but they don't always fit what we stereotype as that culture. So it's really important to understand an individual and what makes them as an individual, and some may be a melting pot of different cultures, even though their appearance or their practices may be consistent with one particular culture. And we need to think about those who are in maybe came from another country or another culture into our nation, and how that assimilation process or that acculturation process occurs, and really figuring out where they are in the trajectory as far as their cultures and their practices, and seeking to understand where they lie as far as their personal cultural values and beliefs. So again, the American Nurses Association position statement on the role of ethics in human rights. This is a really quick and a good read. It's relatively short, 7 pages, but this is a nice overview to really examine where the position of the profession lies in the role of ethics in human rights and protecting that worth and dignity and human rights of individuals in the practice setting. So with that being said, you will find the link for your assignment as well as the content folder that has some information for you that you may find to be helpful as well. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know, and I look forward to sharing this module with you.